Now that we've taken a high-level look at all of the hooks that are available and the action runtime and all of that, we're going to start drilling down to find out specifically what actions are being loaded on a page and then what other functions are hooked into that action. To do that, we're going to use two global arrays in WordPress, WP Actions and WP Filter. WP Actions is an array of all of the actions that are triggered on that page load. While this can be really helpful, it doesn't tell us the other functions that are hooked into it. For that, we have to turn to WP Filters. Now, what's interesting about WordPress is that it uses its own filtering hook system to manage all of the different functions that are hooked into any given action. So even though we're drilling down into actions and not filters here, it's the filter system that allows us to dig into this and see what's hooked in. Now, we're not going to really get into the complexities of how this works, but as you dig deeper in and understand how filters really work, it may make sense to you why they took this approach, and you could see some of the ingenious nature in it. Now, one of the things about WP Filter is that not only will it list out all of the filters applied and all of the functions hooked into any given action, but we could also drill down and give it a specific action that we want a list of hooked in functions for. So let's jump into the code and take a look at how this works. Now, what you'll find here in this example file is that we have a basic theme set up, and inside of the index.php, at the very top, I have a pre-tag and then var dump WP actions. Var dump is a function in PHP that simply dumps out an array onto the page. And the pre-tags is for formatting, so it doesn't display as one block, but instead has some line breaks. Var dump is kind of a crude function and doesn't have anything to do with WordPress, but exists in PHP natively. WP Actions, however, is something from WordPress, and we're going to hop over to the front end now to see what this gives us. If we come over in the front end of our site, we can see that we have an array here of 43 items, and these are all of the action hooks that were called for the load of this page. Now, you'll notice up here that I have some Caldera Forms action hooks being triggered, and that's because I have this form plugin, Caldera Forms, installed to show how different forms hook into the WordPress hooks as well as create their own action hooks as well. So we see some custom Caldera Form action hooks being set up, and then all of the stuff that we would expect to see based on the WordPress action runtime. Now, if we come back over to our code and change it from WP Actions to WP Filter, then we'll get a list of all of the filters and action hooks that have things hooked into them on this page. So now when we do this, notice that we have a much larger array, and drilled down in here are both action and filter hooks, along with all of the things that are hooked into them. Now, to make sense of this a little bit, let's search for WP in Q scripts, which is something that we've used before. If we come down here to the third instance of it, so this is at the highest level, meaning that this is showing us the WP in Q scripts action hook, as well as all of the functions that are hooked into it. And here's how you read this. We have the name of the hook here. Now, it doesn't tell us whether it's an action or a filter, so we sort of have to know that. And then under the callbacks section here, we have it broken down by priority. So under priority 10, we have two items, WP hooks in Q styles, which is our own code loading our style sheet, and then WP hooks in Q scripts, which is loading our JavaScript. We then see that down here at level 1000 is WP localized jQuery UI date picker. Now, if you were to do some digging and simply copy and paste this into our simple install of WordPress here, or not even install, or download of WordPress, and we were to search through that, we could see here in script loader we have a function called WP localize UI date picker that is part of WordPress core, and what it's doing is saying if the jQuery UI date picker is not loaded, then stop. So it doesn't do anything if we don't have the jQuery UI date picker. However, if we do have it installed, it'll do some customization of the date format and then add that code in line on the page so that it works properly. Now, since we don't have that running, this code isn't going to do anything, but we could see here from the page that it is technically hooked in and listening whenever this WP&Q scripts is loaded. Now we mentioned before that we could actually drill into WP Filter deeper by passing in the actual hook that we want to look for. So let's pull up just WP&Q scripts on its own. Now when we load the page, we can see that we have our callbacks with priority 10 and priority 1000, just as we saw before, along with some other information that is attached to that particular hook and the way it's saved in WordPress. And this is how we use WP Actions, WP Filter, and WP Filter passing in a specific parameter, and WP Filter passing in a specific index that we want to look for in that array, all together to dig deeper into WordPress hooks and finding out what other actions are hooked in. Now, I'll admit again that this is a very crude way of going about it, and a lot of developers would not suggest taking var dump too far. However, it's a good quick hack, and in the next lesson, we're going to look at a slightly better approach that we could see everything in a little bit nicer format. However, at this point, try opening up the file, running WP Actions, seeing what's there, running WP Filters, which is a lot, but scrolling through that. And again, some of that is going to be action hooks and some are going to be filter hooks, which we haven't got into yet. And then finally drill down specifically into one or two action hooks that you do recognize and see what's hooked in. If you want to take it even further like we have, then go look up whatever functions are being hooked in and see if you can make sense of what's going on. All of this is going to help you understand hooks better and how WordPress works under the hood.